Anytime we do a video or any kind of content regarding the state of comics and what's wrong with comics, inevitably I get a comment from somebody who wants to talk about how bad Amazing Spider-Man is. It's nonstop. And look, for as long as I've been reading comics, just about, people have been very angry with Spider-Man. I mean, you have Sins Past, right? The Gwen Stacy, Norman Osborn stuff. And then just a few years later, of course, you have the big thing that people are still angry about, their 9/11 one more day. And ever since
Wait,
then, go ahead.
9/11 wasn't there 9/11?
I think that
No,
was canonically in Spider-Man too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no,
Doom
Jet
crying wasn't there 9/11?
jet
absolutely not.
jet fuel does not kill Aunt May. Yeah.
That's right.
And ever since then, it feels like Spider-Man is under a microscope and people are picking apart every single thing that happens with the character. So, my question is it possible to please Spider-Man fans, or is it the case that Marvel simply doesn't know what they are doing with Spider-Man anymore?
I think
Hmm.
I have a specific take on this. I think Spider-Man fans, and when we're talking Spider-Man fans, we're talking Peter Parker fans mostly, right? At least when you give me that prompt, I think Peter Parker. Um, I think people really enjoy Peter Parker because he's the everyman, and because he kind of can feel like the reader. That being said, I also think people love to hate Spider-Man, and they need to feel victimized by the books so they can continue feeling like Peter Parker, who is constantly victimized. I think there is a I don't want to say victim complex is maybe too far of a word, but I do think there's a bit of that when it comes to Peter Parker fans. Like that dude never catches a break. Parker luck is a canonical thing, and they think that's why people like him. And if they can feel more in touch with that, maybe hating the books is the way to do it. I don't know.
I don't know. I tend to think I I tend to think that people want to see themselves as Spider-Man. And so when Peter Parker is constantly beat down, I think they want to see him progress because they've progressed to a certain degree. We're aging. We would like to see a Peter who is roughly equivalent to us, you know? Um, I don't want to see a high school Peter Parker because I'm so far away from a high school Peter Parker. I know Felicia Hardy is not going to go out with me because I'm so far away from a Felicia Hardy. It would be a problem for that. I think he met Felicia Hardy in college, so that's a whole different thing.
Got a question though. Why is it that Peter Parker makes people feel that way? Like I don't see that same thing happening with I don't know. Thor maybe isn't the best option. Like an Iron Man or Captain America. Captain America's complaints are usually something else, but it's because Peter Parker was designed from his inception to
Yeah.
be the capital THE relatable character.
I mean, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think if you follow Marvel comics, chances are pretty good considering the insane popularity of the character, you have a relationship to Spider-Man. And he is designed from the ground up to be relatable. And I think that there are a lot of people whose lives have progressed to a place where, they look at Peter's life and they go, "Man, can you get it together? Like you're a bum. What's up with you?" And I just feel like there is a level of entitlement involved where it's like,
Mm.
you think that because you are growing that Peter must now grow. But if you are in your 30s right now, that means that the earliest you could have possibly started reading Spider-Man comics is at some point in the 80s. And if that is the case for you, if that is true, then that means that there were almost 20 years of Spider-Man comics before you started reading them.
Yep.
So how relatable would Spider-Man have been to you if they had grown him in conjunction with real time from his inception? If they did that now, if he aged, if it was like Spider-Man life story, Peter Parker would be 60 something years old, and nobody's trying to read that.
That being said, check out Life Story. It's very good. But I agree with you, Sean, and I think that there's almost a selfishness to it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I think there is, like, the way you felt when you first read Peter Parker should be something that everyone can feel in comics. So, what's the current gen? Gen Alpha right now? Um, sure, whatever. But like the younger generation should be able to kind of have that same experience. I know Miles exists, and in a way, he kind of fits that for a lot of people, especially younger generations with the movies, even more so. But I think wanting a character to progress in a way where future generations don't get to appreciate the character in the same way you did can sometimes seem a little selfish to me.
But is there not space for us to get what we want as well? And there is the Ultimate Spider-Man, of course.
I think Miles was that attempt. I don't know how you do it with Peter without outside of something like Ultimate.
Yeah, I think I agree, to be honest.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like whenever Spider-Man got that big job at I forget the company he had, but people were on the internet angry about that too, that
Yeah.
having that kind of position didn't fit him. And they were mad when he joined the Avengers because there were people saying that Spider-Man should not be an Avenger. There has not been one single status quo that has existed for Spider-Man since I started reading the character that people were happy about. Not one.
So the character that was, a science geek since he was a kid, getting a job in science pissed people off because it wasn't Daily Bugle.
Yeah, but also because he then became like the CEO or whatever. And
Sure,
he had
this
this
is
really
the
big
Horizon Labs
yeah.
big time
Yeah.
thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People were really mad about that. And it's like, well, so clearly there's nothing right that Marvel can do other than give this man a child and marry him. And they don't want to do that. So it's this tension between what the fans want and what they think is best for the character and what Marvel wants and what will allow them in their minds to continue to profit the way that they need to profit.
Which I think leads us into the next part of the question is, does Marvel know what they're doing? I think, yeah.
I think Ultimates is the proof of it, and the continuation of a Miles comic, even though it's not lighting up the sales charts.
I mean, even setting Ultimate aside, like Amazing is, one of the top tens or whatever every month.
Easily. Up until Ultimate Spider-Man started rolling out, it was number 1 every month.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there with Batman literally monthly. So clearly they know what they're doing.
I get frustrated with that point that Cale just made because I agree with that point wholeheartedly. What frustrates me is that at the current moment in time, it is okay to shit on Amazing Spider-Man. And so, because the common perspective that you find online is that it's a bad book, the when you bring up the fact that it sells really well, people say, well, that's because people are going to buy it no matter what. Well, no, I don't think that's true. Like, you could think it's bad, but clearly it's working for enough people that it remains one of the best-selling comics. And I don't think there are enough people who are just buying it just because for it to stay that good of a seller. That is a crazy perspective to have.
I think there's definitely a percentage that people just buy it and maybe don't read it because it's Spider-Man, but I don't think that percentage keeps it at number 1.
I might even argue it's a high percentage.
Sure.
I don't think it's that high.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. There have been instances in the past of books like Amazing Spider-Man and Batman not selling the way that they should.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about what happened during Tom King's Batman run. When we were doing the New 52 deep dive, I saw that Amazing Spider-Man was number 17 and in the teens and 20s some weeks or months rather. So I don't believe the narrative because I see the numbers now. I've seen them in the past, and right now it's better than plenty of times in history. So what's going on? While the industry has shrunk in terms of readership, Amazing Spider-Man is doing really well.
Well, Sean, how's Monstrous?
Yeah, it's monstrous.
I mean, like, people do pick up books they don't read.
Yeah, okay, Tyler, but like it's selling better now than it was before.
Sure.
So where did these people come from?
Was that during Superior?
No, this was pre-Superior. This was
Pre-Superior,
2012.
okay. Sure.
Yeah.
And even to me, that is an example. Like, people don't think it's good, so people will come up with any excuse as to why it's selling. But what if it's just good? How come other books don't get that grace?
Could it also be that Spider-Man is also a title that, because when we're talking about selling, we're not talking about individual people that are buying books. We're talking about shops that are buying books. Is it because that's one of those titles that shops want to have in stores no matter what for foot traffic? Spider-Man's a character like that. And so
that's also not true. The numbers that we get from Bleeding Cool are point of sale numbers from these stores.
Okay.
Okay.
There is no metric by which ASM is not a dominant comic.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if stores are ordering it, even if that was correct, and stores were ordering it at the number that would put it in at number 1 or number 1 through 5 every month, why would stores consistently order a book that's sitting on their shelves?
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
Especially if it's not a first appearance or a milestone or,
Yeah, like Spider-Man has a random issue that's in the thousands, but it happens to be an anniversary issue for something.
Yeah. Here's where I come down. I personally think that whether or not something is good is less important than whether or not people care about it. And there are a million great examples of that. But let's take like Omega Men, because I think that's often an example of a book that people say is great, and I agree with that. I think it is great, but it didn't sell. So why did that happen? Well, I don't think anybody gave a shit. That doesn't mean it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I think it's wonderful. But people didn't care about it for whatever reason. The market didn't take to it. You could come up with 50 million reasons why. People didn't care. They didn't know to care. They didn't think to care. They didn't know who was writing it. Doesn't matter.
Sure. Yeah.
If ASM was just bad and boring, people wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy it. There have been times when I haven't bought ASM.
And I think if it ever got that bad, they'd have a new creative team ready. You would instantly get that, that paper champion creative team that feels like it's been, cached in a drawer somewhere until they got, the new creative team for it. Which I feel like they've done before. Was it after like Nick Spencer's run? There was like a quick spree of just other creators.
I seem to recall
like
something
maybe like 3,
that. Yeah.
Maybe like 4 issues or something like that. But like other books have done that too. So like usually these things, Marvel can adjust to that in a relatively quick way. Relative being 3 months probably, but yeah.
You don't get 50 plus issues on a book that's bad, or not a book that's bad, a book that people aren't buying and don't care about. This really doesn't happen. I mean, Tom King's Batman got cut short. Zeb Wells' Spider-Man got extended. What are we talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And Tom King's stuff was all over the news. Like by all intents and purposes, all due respect to Zeb Wells and what and his co-creators, it's just a Spider-Man run, right? There's nothing like crazy happening in it. You know,
it's almost purposely not even using the Sinister Six. Like it's purposely using some lesser known characters.
The only press this book has gotten has been negative press. Like
Yeah.
they killed Miss
Oh
Marvel.
yeah,
No one
yep.
liked that. That was
Oh, that's right.
awful.
Can't-
Paul, everybody
Yeah.
hates Paul. And but what kills me so much about that is that everybody knows all these things, right? Like
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
one reads ASM, but everybody knows about Paul, right? Like it's just so funny.
Well, then I think that Tom King Batman's an interesting comparison because that thing did things in the book to pop ratings. The marriage,
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
arcs, killing of Alfred, Bane is here. Like it would constantly do that. And for what it's worth, I enjoyed that run. But I do think like this Zeb Wells run continues to sell. Um, it continues to do stuff on YouTube. I say stuff because it's negative and positive, mostly positive here. Um, but it doesn't. It's not trying to pop anything. It's just doing what it does well.
I was gonna say, is it like, when you compare it to the Tom King Batman run, it felt like Tom was taking massive swings. Does it feel like Zeb is?
The biggest swing that I can say it feels like Zeb is taking is making Spider-Man more street level,
Hmm.
which is probably a T-ball swing. Like I don't consider that a huge swing.
I think that it is a very much less ambitious story
Same.
than Tom's on Batman.
Yeah.
The reason why Tom King's run fell apart in the eyes of the public is because he promised a marriage and didn't give it.
Hmm.
If that hadn't happened, I think we'd have a much different historical conversation about that run.
Been there.
That was the mistake. For better or worse, Zeb Wells, Jr., Ed McGuinness, everybody else, they've given you exactly what you would expect to be getting,
Yeah.
which is a fun adventure featuring Peter Parker and his bum ass luck and all the other cast of characters that you want to see. And that is it. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not boring. It's not bad, not to me. I have a blast reading it. I get active joy out of reading that comic. And a lot of times it feels like people want to take that joy, and I don't understand why. So when the question is asked, does Marvel know what they are doing with Spider-Man? My answer is yes. They know exactly what they are doing with Spider-Man, getting you to buy it. That's it.
Yep. That's it.
Spider-Man's been their character for so long. It would be ridiculous if they didn't know what they were doing with him.
And it's not just because they want it to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, if all of a sudden Spider-Man just couldn't sell copies, they'd have to put him away for a while. But that's never going to happen. Part of it is because of who he is, but I also think Marvel knows what they're doing. So I'm prepared to see the comments to the contrary. That's all right. You guys are free to disagree with that. But just remember one thing. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not good.
I would love to respond, in a video form of like decent arguments about like why it's bad, why blah blah blah, I think that could be interesting to extend the conversation just that little bit further.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like the best comments we get in response to this that are good faith, we can absolutely do a talk back to. Sure.
Yeah.
So leave your comments in the comments section below, whether you agree with us or don't. That's all good. We'll respond to them in a future video. Make sure you leave us a like and subscribe as well. Thank you guys so much. Till next time, take care.